course, we could chant Om Namo. What was it? Om Namo Bhagavat. Om Narayana Namaha. Narayanaya. What does that mean? Unto the Lord Narayan. All right. We're going to have a quiz. You can be thinking about it. We know that Raj and Dravida know the answer. But how did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was staying at the house of Venkadabhatta, who was at Sri Rangam, the home place of Ramanujacharya, how did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bring, what was his argument that he presented? Now you can think about it, we'll ask later on, to Venkadabhatta to convince him to that the worship of Krishna in Vrindavan is higher than the worship of Narayan. On one hand it's the same, it's a detail, but there is a difference. So you can be thinking about that. That's going to be a quiz. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Desatarani Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is part 2 about the great Ramanujacharya. And we left off that his Yadava Prakash, his Gurukula teacher, had tried to kill him, had a plot to kill him, and he'd escaped into the forest and was directed out of the forest. Miraculously, a 3-day journey was accomplished overnight, practically within a flash, and by a hunter couple, husband and wife, who were hunters living in the forest, who actually were Lakshmi and Lord Narayan, who had transferred him out, and all of a sudden he was at the edge of the forest, and there was his home village. Good morning, Bhakta Ed. Hare Krishna. So, Yamunacharya was the great teacher in South India. There's a whole story about him, but we can remember that Prabhupada says that Yamunacharya, that whenever, if he thought of sex, he would curl his lip and spit. So, and there's many great quotes by Yamunacharya. So Yamunacharya, he called for Ramanujacharya that you come and be initiated by me. So this was a great honor, and it was his great ecstasy to take shelter of a bona fide, for this time, a bona fide Vaishnava guru, Yamunacharya. But Yamunacharya left his body before it could happen. So you can imagine Ramanujacharya was, you're almost there, and then all of a sudden this great soul has departed. So he went before the deity, Sri Ranganath, in Sri Rangam, and was what to do. And the deity spoke to him and said, no, this is my arrangement, and you take an initiation from Mahapurna. So that's Mahapurana. So that's who he took, and that was his spiritual master. And of course the pastime is there. Mahapurna was the one who gave him the mantra, which you guys just chanted, Om Namo Narayana? Narayanaya. And he felt such great ecstasy that he went to the gate of the city, called everyone for him, please take this mantra. And he was told, his guru Mahapurna said, why did you do this? I told you not to. And now, if you break the order of the spiritual master, you have to suffer in hell and so many different things, And he said, that's all right. He said, if everyone else can be delivered, then let me go to hell. And his spiritual master, Mahapurna, was so ecstatic. He was just testing him, and was so. This is the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that let us deliver every living entity. Does anyone know anyone from the Chaitanya Leela other than Dravida Prabhu? Anyone else know, and other than Raj Prabhu, anyone know someone else from Chaitanya Leela who had this mood? Anybody know? Ram, who? Vasudev, who said, let every living entity, he was lamenting that all the living entities, and he said, let them all go to heaven, and I'll go to Vaikuntha, I'll take their karmic reaction. So this is the Prabhupada makes the point that the yogis, and on one hand we offer our respects. They go to the Himalayas, or they go to some deep forest, and they chant where they can't be disturbed. But where will you find the Vaishnavas? You'll find the Vaishnavas in the middle of here we are. There's more bars per capita, this is pre-COVID, in Pacific Beach than any other city in America. Yeah. And the that's our claim to fame. And Krishna, there's a whole story. I don't want to take up everybody's time, but we had another temple planned. Gunagraj Maharaj was the one that was the temple president at the time, and there was a synagogue we were going to get out by SanDiego State. And to time it, the temple at that time was at 3rd and Thorn, right by Balboa Park. And there was the temple building, and then there was an ashram next door for the householders and for the ladies. And there were 2 buildings. And it was all time to sell those 2 buildings, and they were already in escrow. And when we had the cash from those, we were in escrow to purchase the synagogue. Now the synagogue, they didn't want to sell to the Hare Krishnas. We actually had one of our Indian friends from the congregation was our front person for him, And when they found out that it was going to become a Hare Krishna temple, the rabbi said, I would burn this building before I'll let you make this into a Hare Krishna temple. And somehow or other, they had a good lawyer, and they got out of their escrow, and we couldn't get out of our escrow. So literally the devotees, the time was slipping through the hourglass. There was a few weeks, and there was nowhere to move the deities and devotees. And so Gunagraj Maharaj was, searching all over the place to find a place, and they were thinking up by SanDiego State was a good location. And Gunagraj Maharaj, who was very frugal with his, Krishna's money, went to a discount dentist over here named Dr. Shaker. And Dr. Shaker was Palsic, by the way, which was an interesting experience. Almost hit me in the eye one time with a shot of Novocaine. So that's Dr. Shaker. But he was cheap. We had no money in those days, literally practically no money. So anyway, Gunagraj Maharaj used to drive down this street, and there were 3 dentist appointments in a row, 3 days in a row, and there was a sign on this building for lease by the month. And he was so desperate, and this was just a warehouse at the time. So what to do? And it had been a former Elks Lodge and an army barracks and a movie theater. This building has been through a lot. So just to finish the story, so Gunagraj Maharaj approached the man, Mr. Lester, who turned out to be a very, very nice man. So James Lester, Gunagraj Maharaj said, well, we'll just take it for a month until we find out where we want to be. So they moved in here, And then James Lester, Mr. Lester, offered us very good terms. He said, he liked us. He liked the devotees. He liked what we were doing. And he said, I'll let you, you can make your monthly payments. If you buy the building, those can go towards the mortgage payment. And he carried the paper. He carried the bat. We didn't have to do any refinancing. It was just an amazing thing, And it turns out that, we're right by the beach. There's all kinds of young people. It's close to UCSD. It's close to downtown. It was just a fantastic location. So we had one plan, and Krishna said, no, I want to put you here. So we've always, this is a special location here. But in the same way, the temple in Australia, in Melbourne, is in Sydney, is in the red light, right next to the red light district. There's tons of young. It's a great. There's all kinds of people. It's in the entertainment district of the. So, that's where you'll find the devotees. You'll find the devotees because there's actual deep compassion for the conditioned souls. So, you can keep your secret mantra, keep it to yourself, and practice in the Himalayas, and okay, fine. But that doesn't really attract Krishna, because Krishna wants to see the conditioned souls delivered, and someone who helps him. Prabhupada saw a sign. I wasn't there, but it was on a morning walk. And Prabhupada saw a sign that said so-and-so and Sons. A business. You see Jones and Sons, Smith and Sons, so-and-so and Sons. And Prabhupada liked the sign very much because he said, this is our family business. That our family business of the Vaishnavas is to deliver the conditioned souls. This is the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. And there's a book, I think there's a book by someone, has a title. What is it called? I know exactly what it is. It's Vaisheshika Prabhu's book, Our Family Business, which is all about book distribution. So delivering the conditioned souls, the Brahma Sampradaya, we talked about these 4 Sampradayas, Ramanujacharya coming in the Sri Sampradaya, which is famous for its deity worship and puja, which we'll talk about in just a second. But the Brahma Sampradaya, we're in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. Our Sampradaya is famous for knowledge. So distribution of that transcendental knowledge. And we have this as the mood of Ramanujacharya. That I may not want to go in Sankirtan today, I got a headache, or my mind's agitated. No, I'm going to go out and deliver the conditioned souls. Or, whatever it may be. No, because all of us, Prabhupada liked the advertisement of the Indian Railway. And the motto for the Indian Railway at the time was keep the wheels turning. And the ethos or the mood of whether you're a mechanic, whether you're an engineer, whether you're shoveling coal, whether you're working in the kitchen, whether you're in the office, all of us, the whole operation is to keep the wheels turning. And everyone should feel that they're part of that effort. So in the same way, Prabhupada said that all of us, all the devotees, our business is to deliver the conditioned souls. Whether it's we're off the track, but what the hey. And I mentioned, so I'll just tell the short version. Somehow or other, we were using a expired tax exempt wholesale seller's number for buying the deity flowers. A previous temple president, 4 temple presidents back, there was a devotee, had a jewelry business, and he let the temple, it was legal, use their wholesale license number when we purchased the flowers, so we saved on tax. And the business had closed, no one even remembered, the flower guy automatically gave us the credit. Somehow or other, there was an investigation. That guy's, an Italian, whatever, and they did, a little something was going on the side, and they did an investigation. And in the course of that investigation of that guy's tax fraud, our expired tax number came up. And I got a letter from the California Franchise Tax Board. And it turns out that we owed $16,000 in past due taxes, and there was penalties and late fees. It wound up being $37,000 we owed to the California Franchise Tax Board. I mean, we don't have that kind of money, and especially in those days, and just, for nothing. Oh, I was in big anxiety about it, So the guy came to see us, gray suit, gray tie. The guy was they say a laughing jury's not a hanging jury. You try to get the guy to chuckle. Because people laugh, then there's kind of a bond there, and they lose. I could not get this guy. I couldn't get a chuckle, a smile. I couldn't get nothing. Guy was like ice. And so my office used to be right here, and they said, "And what are you spending all this money on flowers for anyway?" So I said, I'll show you. And we brought him down here. He didn't take his shoes off, but we opened the door, because the guy was so uptight. But we opened the door, and he saw a beautiful Radha decorated like this with nice vases and garlands and flowers. And the guy was silent. He didn't say a peep. He just looked, and he kind of stood there for a long time looking, It's like in the movies, time froze, and he just was looking at the deities. And he didn't say a word. He walked back to my office, we sat down. And he said, "Do you have a stapler?" I said, "Sure." And I gave him a stapler, He opened up his briefcase. He took out the file. He stapled the file shut, put it back in his briefcase, and said, "Well, you'll never hear from us again." That was it. Just closed the thing, He was so moved by seeing the flowers on beautiful Radha Giridhar. So whether we're decorating the Sankirtan devotees come home and they see beautiful Radha Giridhar, or before they go out, make a nice prasadam, and the devotees feel, Prabhupada said, quoting Napoleon, an army runs on its stomach. So everybody keeps the wheels turning. That how can why do we have this business, this big building, and Dayanidhi and the mortgage was paid off twice on this thing, because we had to take out that loan for the youth fund, and the devotees with the painting business paid off the mortgage on this thing, and then Dayanidhi and Yamunapati, when we had to refinance for the youth fund, that how much was it they raised? Over $300,000 they raised. And now the temple's free and clear. So such work to maintain this building, we don't need it. We can go out to the farm and live in a nice little bungalow and quiet. No one will disturb us. But why are we here? Because that way people can come and take prasadam and see the deities and hear Krishna Katha. So this is the mood of a Vaishnava, exemplified here by this Ramanujacharya. Let me go to hell. So, and that is our austerity. What is it? Narayana paro yogo, Narayana paratapaha, Narayana param jnanam, Narayana paragatihi. That the perfection of all austerity, of all knowledge. So, you can sit in the winter time with your neck up to ice cold water, in the summertime with the 4 fires on each side. But the austerity of maintaining and pushing the Sankirtan movement forward, that austerity completely trumps, completely eclipses, attracts Krishna's mercy. Krishna's Yogeshwar. He's not attracted by some austerity. I mean, on one hand, but the austerity of let me put everything aside and accept some difficulty to somehow or other push the Sankirtan mission forward and save these conditioned souls, that attracts Krishna. Like iron filings to a magnet, Krishna's attracted by that austerity. So here we have that exemplified by Ramanujacharya. The Ramanujacharya, he had, when he left his body, 3 of his fingers curled in like this. And they could understand that this is Yamunacharya. I'm sorry, I don't know what I said, but Yamunacharya, when he left his body, his 3 fingers had curled in. And when Ramanujacharya went to offer his respects to the Samadhi, because he'd left his body already, and he took initiate from Mahapurna, but who was a disciple of Yamunacharya. He was a disciple of Yamuna. Sorry if I've confused that one. But anyway, the point is that he could understand that Ramanujacharya could understand that these 3 fingers curled in on Yamunacharya meant that there were 3 desires of Yamunacharya that were unfulfilled. So at the Samadhi ceremony of Yamunacharya, Ramanujacharya made a vow, and I will fulfill these 3 unfulfilled desires. And he made this vow in front of the devotees. And one of them is that he would free the people from illusion by spreading the Lord's glories. And one of the fingers of the 3 straightened out. And then he said he would completely defeat Sankaracharya's teachings. And that he did with his writing the Sri Bhashya, And the second finger unfolded. And the third desire, Ramanujacharya, he said that in honor of the great sage Parasara Muni, he would name one of his disciples a leading disciple, Parasara. So the third finger unfolded. And the point is that this is why when Vidarbhi, the queen, who we're now reading about, well, no, we're not, but in Paranjana, when Paranjana became a woman, the queen Vidarbhi, and the husband died, and when she went into the fire, anyone remember the famous purport by Prabhupada? What did Prabhupada say should be the mood of a disciple? Figuratively, the husband is the spiritual master, the wife figuratively is the disciple. And what is that entering into fire? The disciple would rather die than not fulfill the mission of the spiritual master. And it means that all of our material this is, obviously it doesn't happen overnight, but that mood of all of my material plans and schemes, that's all dead. I'm going to throw swaha at the time of initiation, just like the wife sati ceremony in the old days would go into the fire. So the disciple, at the time of initiation, with the swaha, the grains into the fire, one of the things that symbolizes is all of my other aspirations and dreams, let it all be burnt to ash, and let me fulfill the order of my spiritual master. So that's another, that deep compassion of let me deliver the conditioned souls, even I may have to go to hell for it, let me do it, and let me simply live to fulfill the order of my spiritual master. Those are 2 exemplified by these pastimes of Ramanujacharya. There's a little history, and in this slideshow, you'll see some pictures of the powerful Sri Rangam temple, the temple in Sri Rangam, the temple Raghunath, Lord Raghunath. But the 300 years earlier, there was, because the tradition is still there, and I don't want to say the full story now, but just to give you an idea of the mood, there were very, very wealthy landowners that had made all their money by exploiting it's a feudal system, and you find it all over the world in those times, that someone owns a bunch of land, and then they let it out to the peasant farmers, and the peasant farmers make a little sustenance living, and they have to give either they pay a certain something annually, or they have to give a percentage of whatever they produce. So they're just eking out a living off the land, and so these wealthy landowners were so exploitative, and they wouldn't give anything for renovating the temple. This great devotee, coming later, anyway, his name was Tirumangal. So 300 years at Tirumangal, he had 4 disciples. He had many disciples, and 4 of those disciples had mystic powers. And one of those mystic powers was that, how did it work? One could bewilder anyone by his speaking. And Prabhupada mentions these at different cities. Another one was that he could open any lock without a key. He could blow on it. Any lock would open. Anyone would be paralyzed by his shadow. That was another disciple had that. And another one could walk on water. So these disciples had these 4 mystic powers. And what they did was they actually used their mystic powers to steal from these wealthy landowners. And that's how they got built, because the Sri Rangam temple has 7 gates and 7 concentric circles and 7 gopurams. So that's how they developed it. And they also engaged some common robbers, just common thieves. And then once all the work was done, what they wanted to accomplish, Tirumangal said, okay, stop. But the robbers, they didn't want to stop. In fact, they threatened Ramanujacharya and his disciples that they were going to kill him. So Ramanujacharya said, okay, we'll sort it all out. Let's, come visit me. I'm over on this. There was an island, that Srirangam's on an island in the middle of the Kaveri River. So when they were coming across, so the one disciple who could bewilder anyone by his speaking, convinced them all to get in the boat. And then the other disciple, somehow he goes, they sank the boat, and the one disciple who sank the boat was able to walk on water, so he saved himself, and that got rid of the robbers. So there's a whole mystic history about the Sri Rangam temple, how it was built and far. So, and we'll say a little more when we get to that point. He was thrown. Ramanujacharya, as I was saying, in the Sri Sampradaya, and the Sri Sampradaya is Tirupati, and Prabhupada said that we should go from them and learn how to do their deity worship, and that was actually instruction for how to take care of guests and how to maintain the temple. It is a whole story, but I don't want to take up too much time. They actually appreciated. When Prabhupada came, they had Prabhupada sign the guest book. It's signed by the President of India and, Bill Clinton and so on. So they offered Prabhupada that please sign. And Prabhupada's comment, because it asked for comments, Prabhupada wrote, very spiritual. That was Prabhupada's comment about his darshan of Balaji, Sri Venkateshwara. And they were so nice that they said, can you give us any advice? How can we improve? And Prabhupada said, no. The way you are worshiping the deity, please, can I send my disciples and you can train them and how do you keep your books and how do you take care of guests? So there's many stories like that. So okay, but they said, but Prabhupada said, all right, because you've asked, you're not spreading the glories. You're taking care of Sri Venkateshwara, but how are you spreading his glories? And they in humility said, we're not very good at that, but you have trained your disciples. You're very good at that. And so they let us set up book tables. We're the only nobody else gets to do it. Any other Sampradaya, anyone else, Gaudiya Math, forget it. But because they were so impressed by Prabhupada and by the missionary spirit of the devotees, we have like 6 or 7 book tables. And they sell thousands of books. It's the way we built our temple. It's because they've got, 100,000 pilgrims come a day to Tirupati. So they're famous for their very excellent deity worship. So when Ramanujacharya came to Puri, now Puri, of course there's the whole story, we won't go into it, but they were originally forest dwellers, and so they're kind of spontaneous and a little bit, how they were worshiping Lord Jagannath. And so Ramanujacharya said, no, you've got to tighten it up. And he got everything, all the offerings exactly on time and everything, all the right mantras, and it was a whole very much awe and reverence and strict, not so much spontaneity. And the king of Puri backed him up. So all the pujaris were, had been trained up, and on the next day, the king of Puri was going to come, and all the priests, they were going to start this new, very strict deity puja standard. That night, Ramanujacharya went to bed, woke up in the morning, and he'd been thrown 24 miles away to another temple called Alarnath. Him and all of his disciples, Lord Jagannath, and Lord Jagannath said, and don't come back. Lord Jagannath appeared to him and said, I like the way they worship me. It's Puri, and they have their Ratha Yatra, and the whole thing is spontaneous, and I like it. So just don't come back. Don't mess it up, And of course it was, to have Lord Jagannath's darshan and have him, that's pretty sweet in and of itself. And Prabhupada describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the local mood, just like there's a way we dress Radha Giridhari here, there's a way that they dress Rukmini Dwarkadish, and it's been established over the years. There's certain things, and now Parashakti is going to start cooking the burfi. But there's a certain standard. The SanDiego burfi used to be famous. Sandesh is very good. But there's a style, and there's a certain way they do it. You get those Jagannath fingers when you go to Jagannath Puri. There's certain elements of worship that are the local flavor, and that local flavor and mood developed over generations is part of is one of the elements of the puja. So you don't just come in here and change everything. No, this is the mood that's developed. Somebody asked me one time, Rukmini Dwarkadish, they're so big. And Radha Giridhar are very small. I said, sure. You've got Krishna in Dwarka, he's full grown. And here he's little Gopal, so it's only reasonable, He's just a village boy. So there's that. So Ramanujacharya's last instructions after leaving his body, and then we're going to talk about some Chaitanya Leela, but just before giving up his body, Ramanujacharya, first thing he did was he begged for forgiveness from all the devotees, that for any offenses, any mistakes, any times. So he begged for forgiveness, and then he begged for forgiveness from all living entities. So that's the, humility. And Prabhupada did the same thing. He begged for forgiveness and, And then his final instructions were, all of you serve Lord Ranganath with sincere love and devotion, and live cooperatively with all the Vaishnavas. So you serve Lord Ranganath, you serve the Supreme Lord, and you serve the Vaishnavas, you work cooperatively, and let that be your happiness. Everyone's seeking happiness. Let your happiness be spreading the glories of the Lord and serving the Vaishnavas and living cooperatively. And what was Prabhupada's instruction to all of us? Your love for me will be proven by you work cooperatively. So from Chaitanya Leela, the Lord Jagannath appeared to Ramanujacharya in a dream. And this is from the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. That Lord Jagannath, by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and his Lord Nityananda giving the tour to Jiva Goswami, right? So Lord Jagannath appeared to Ramanujacharya in a dream and told him, go alone, not with all your disciples. You just come alone to Navadvip. There Lord Chaitanya appeared to him in a dream and revealed all the truths of Madhurya Ras, and revealed himself to be Radha and Krishna combined Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to Ramanujacharya in Navadvip. First Lord Jagannath appeared and said, you go to Navadvip. Appeared to him in a dream and explained all about Madhurya Ras. But then he said, but Lord Jagannath said, but externally you teach Dasya Ras, while internally you worship me and relish Madhurya Ras. So internally he was worshiping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the conjugal love Madhurya Ras, but he was teaching Dasya Ras. Ramanujacharya, you can imagine, all of a sudden, then Lord Chaitanya disappeared. So he was feeling, you can imagine, you find a jewel and then lose it. You can imagine, okay, if you never had the jewel, that's one thing, but to find it and lose it. So he was in great anxiety. So Ramanujacharya said, don't worry, you do this work for me, you do your mission, and I will appear to you again. And it's confirmed in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He says, I will appear again. Don't worry, I'll appear later in Navadvip, and you can take part in my pastimes. So Ramanujacharya appeared in Lord Chaitanya's pastime as an elderly Brahmin, Ananta Vipra, and participated in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Srirangam for Chaturmasya. This is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. He stayed at the house of Venkatabhatta, and we've got a picture of that, who's coming in Ramanuja's line. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed there for 4 months. And who was the son of Venkatabhatta? Yes, Dravida Prabhu. Gopal Bhatta Goswami, one of our Goswamis, was a little boy who faithfully served Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for 4 months. Then he became our Gopal Bhatta. So we've got a quote on that, or a picture on that. And Prabhupada, thank you very much. Krishna attracts. So what was the argument? This was the quiz. Does anyone know? Because Venkatabhatta, he's worshiping, Sri Ranganath is Lord Vishnu, Mahavishnu, Lakshmi Narayan. He's worshiping Lakshmi Narayan in awe and reverence. And when you see the temple, you'll see the mood there. So what was the argument Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave? Anyone know? Balaram. Yeah, he said that why is it that even Lord Narayan wants to understand the mood of the gopis. But the gopis, when Krishna had disappeared from the Rasa Leela and the gopis were looking for Krishna and Lord Narayan appeared, they were not influenced at all. They just asked him, please, Lord Vishnu, please give us the blessing that we can find Krishna. And the same thing too, the goddess of fortune performed austerities so that she could participate in the Rasa Leela. And even Lord Narayan, when he saw the mood of the gopis, was having trouble. It was Krishna in the form of Narayan, was having trouble maintaining his four-handed form. He kept slipping into his two-handed form. So all of these are confirmations. I mean, on one hand, it is a fine point. Radhanath Maharaj gave a fantastic example. Talk about a nice sutra. And he told me later on he heard Prabhupada say it in Vrindavan. So does anyone know the difference between Narayan and Krishna? Prabhupada said it. Radhanath Maharaj remembered it. Lord Narayan is God and... Oh, Balaram. Yes, that Lord Narayan is God in the office and Krishna is God at home. So that's, if you want to make a difference, that, he's maintaining all the universes, Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan, and Krishna just playing, at home. So, but that convinced Venkata. Now, we're almost done, then we'll do the slideshow. There are four, in this Navadip Mahatmyam, this by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Lord Nityananda and Jiva Goswami. It's described Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Nimbarkacharya, Vishnu Swami, all of them had the darshan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and got private instruction. That, for this time, we were talking about the arc of history and all that. So here's your mission. At this time, what the people need to hear is this message. And internally you can worship me this. So each of those four Vaishnava Acharyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took 2 points from each of them, and that became our Achinta Beda Beda Tattva and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So just like you've got so many rivers, they all flow into the ocean. So the 4 different Acharyas, Vaishnava Acharyas, their teachings all flow in to the ocean of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instructions. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fully embodies, like if you have a subset, if you have the full set, any number in the subset is contained in the original set. So if you have the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the other teachings, all the other points made by the other 4 Vaishnava Acharyas are contained within Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching. So nothing is lost and everything is perfectly synthesized and brings us to the point of Madhurya Lila or conjugal ras. So it is the fullest and most complete presentation of Vaishnava understanding is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the 2 things that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took from Ramanujacharya's line was devotional service unpolluted by karma and jnana. There's no, bhakti, jnana, karma, yoga, they all stand with folded hands at the doorstep of a devotee. How can I serve you? At the doorstep of bhakti. And then service to the devotees. This is the service to the Vaishnavas. And that's the fast track, the secret. Everyone's looking for a secret, inside tip, serve the Vaishnavas. And he gave an example. One of the disciples, there was a young householder who was wanted to massage the feet of he was a Brahmin. There was a noble Brahmin, young boy, and he wanted, there was a Sudra Vaishnava. When we say it's like an oxymoron, but he'd get like Namacharya Haridas Thakur came from a Muslim family. I think they were a fish village or whatever it was. So so the so although coming in a Sudra line, and his name was let's see what his name is, Kanchipurna. So Kanchipurna was this young Brahmin wanted to massage the lotus feet of Kanchipurna. And Kanchipurna, in natural humility, just like Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami, Haridas Thakur, they didn't force their way into the Jagannath temple. They just accepted the local etiquette. All right, and in their great humility. So when this young noble coming in a noble Brahmin line wanted to massage Kanchipurna's feet, Kanchipurna said, "No, how can you massage my feet?" And the response of the Brahmin boy was that he cursed his being. He said, "If my being born in a Brahmin family blocks me from massaging the lotus feet of a great Vaishnava like you, let me be born, a dog eater 1,000 times if it lets me massage your lotus feet." So this mood of service to the Vaishnavas, that we understand the rarity of such a thing. It opens the door of liberation. So that's the deity, Sri Ranganath deity, worshipped by Ramanujacharya. That deity was given by Lord Ram to Vibhishana when Vibhishana was installed as the king. Lord Ram wanted to give the best thing he had to Vibhishana. Vibhishana, the noble brother of Ravana, later. So he was installed as the king. And so Lord Ram, when he was leaving Lanka, wanted to give this, Lord Ram, you can imagine, Vibhishana, you're leaving me. No, I'll give you this beautiful deity of me, and you just worship this deity. So, but the deity, Sri Ranganath, said, "No, I'm happy here. I don't want to leave. I don't want to go to Lanka." The deity said to Lord Ram, "I don't want to go to Lanka." So what to do? He said, "But don't worry." The deity said, "Don't worry, I will always be." The deity turned his face. Usually the deities are facing east, in traditional temples. But when you go to Sri Rangam, the deity of Sri Ranganath, Lord Vishnu, you'll see the picture, he's looking south. So he's always looking, giving his shelter to Vibhishana, because Lanka is south of there. So that's a little something about the deity. So there it is. And up to this day, in the Ramanujacharya line, they often worship Sitaram deities. It's very nice worship of Sitaram. So we should move quickly. Somebody can hit the lights, and we'll go into this. And I can't walk at the same time. Can you move this over there? We'll sit in that chair. I forgot my laser pointer, but that'll be all right. Oh, Govinda. What's that? No, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. But don't move it. Let me pack it up later on. So, as we described, there's an arc of history. I won't go into this, is just to refresh your memory, that you've got Lord Buddha, because they were using the Vedas for sinful activities, for rationalizing meat eating and so many different things, he said, "Forget the Vedas then, and you just listen to me." And he got the morality, ahimsa, nonviolence, and got them to stop eating animals. But they were outside the paragon, the house of the Vedic literature. They're outside of the, Varnashram system following the Vedas. Then Sankaracharya comes along and smashes Buddhism and based and on Vedic teaching. So he gets them back into the Vedic umbrella. Okay, we have to follow the Vedic literature. And he also, it's not just that, it all, is this on? Yeah, you can turn it up just a bit. Can you hear me? Okay, then I'm not going to worry about it. So you can, instead of just, becoming nothing, when there's no work, no desire, no karma to propel you, then you just cease to exist, which Prabhupada calls spiritual suicide. No, there's because you can't bend them all at once. He bent them enough that, okay, there's sat and asat. There is an eternal, formless Brahman, and we merge into it. But at least it's not just you become nothing. If you become free from karma, free from desires, you merge into the Brahman. So he got him to move a little further. And then Ramanujacharya comes along, and his qualified oneness, and we'll talk about that qualified oneness in a minute. Well, here it is. So he brought him the next step. Oh, well, we'll get there in a second. I don't have my laser pointer, but I mentioned that temple that the four, and I was talking earlier how the four Sampradayas, the four Vaishnava Sampradayas, everything's contained within the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this was the temple was built, this is right next to the Samadhi and the original house of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And under, you can see the main dome, and then you can see one of the side spires there, but there's four of those. And under those spires is a murti of one Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and Vishnu Swami. And it makes the visual point that all of those four principles are holding up, those teachings of those four acharyas hold the platform of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Radha and Krishna. So it's a visual explanation, which has a powerful effect. And just for fun, this is a picture of the deities, Gandharvika Giridhari. Gandharvika means Radharani, the best of all singers, and Giridhari, of course, we know, the lifter of Govardhan Hill. So these were Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati deities. Under that, the culmination of all these sampradayas is Madhurya Ras, the worship of Radha Krishna, as expressed in Vrindavan. We're going to go quickly. So I was talking about this qualified oneness, that this moving from just Sankarcharyas, it's all one. So he gives it Vashishta Advaita, qualified oneness. This is, you see the green bird in the green tree. So if a green bird flies into a green tree, it appears to merge, but its individuality is separate. And this verse from Katha Upanishad, Nitya Nityanam Chaitans Chaitananam, that we're all eternal, every living entity, we're all eternal life force. But Eko Bahunam, there's one Yovadadate Kaman. There's one chief eternal who's maintaining all the others. So that's the difference. Yeah, we're all eternal, we're all, that thou art, or whatever it is, but no, there's a difference. So that's Ramanujacharya. Also, is this world unreal? And he gives the example of a shining shell and a silver goblet. Now, if you think the shell is silver, then that's a mistake. The shell exists. There are shiny shells, like this is an abalone shell, several of them, and there's a silver goblet. So the shell is real, the goblet is real, but thinking that the shell is silver, that's the illusion. It's not that the shell doesn't exist, but it's the misplaced thinking that it's silver. So similarly, well, here we go. The shadow has 5 fingers because the original object has 5 fingers. So the illusion is thinking that this material world is temporary, and it's a reflection, just like it says here, the material world is the dictionary for the spiritual world. So because because the material world has its purpose. Its purpose is, it is a dictionary for the spirit. As there's relationships, as we have personality, as there's interreactions, these are reflections of what is there in the spiritual world. So he's making that point, that the illusion is not that this world is not real, or not that it's all a dream. That's not it at all. The illusion is considering the asat to be sat. But you can use the asat to understand. It's indicative of what the eternal nature is. So, just briefly. Now, a little tourism here, just for fun. This is the main gate of the main Gopuram in Sri Rangam. And you can just get an idea of how massive this thing, and it's got all these different doors. Just like you've got the VIP entrance, so according to the level of the different devas, they don't walk through the same, door where all the rest of us, shlebs of Kali Yuga. They've got their own different ways that they enter, because the devas are traveling all over the place. They used to think that the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before it was discovered by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, they thought it was haunted because there were ghosts there. They thought there were ghosts. And so the local people, Muslims and this and that, wouldn't bother the place. But actually it was all the devas would come and offer worship, because it was the birthplace of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So there's a lot going on that our little ant's vision of the world we don't see. This is you can see the Sri Ranganath temple complex. It's an island in the Kaveri River, so you can see one side of the Kaveri River, beautiful river. But you can see how massive this thing is. And it's a series of walls and gates. This is the inner sanctum. That is hammered gold. That is not gold paint. That is not gold leaf. That is sheets of metal hammered. So you can just imagine the wealth of that place. And here's the beautiful deity under that inner sanctum, Sri Ranganath. He's Lord Vishnu lying down. They have the Utsav deities in front of him. Here he is. Here's a stylized picture, and he's looking south towards Lanka, which is very rare. Most deities are facing east. You can see the same thing. Our Radha Giridhari, they're facing south. Well, what's that all about? Because when these doors are open, which you open in the summertime, and the front is open, and the cars back up at that red light, or people are going by slowly because of traffic, you can look right in these doors. People walk by, and they can see beautiful Radha Giridhari. So we're not stuck up in that, we're smartas and everything, we have to face east and then nobody gets darshan of the deity. No, let the deity face west. And, Giridhari, let them smiling give their benediction moon on these conditioned souls. So here we have the same mood, that he's facing south towards Lanka, Vibhishan. The consorts, just like you have Radha and Krishna, so you have Bhu and Shri. These are the consorts of Lord Vishnu. And in Chaitanya Leela, they become Vishnu Priya or Lakshmi Priya, the two wives of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. These are the symbols. Whenever you see this, you'll see ashrams, especially in Vrindavan or different places in South India. This means that they're connected to the Ramanujacharya Sampradaya. And you can see Garuda and Hanuman in the mood of service. So Dasya Ras, we were hearing about, that's the mood of his thing. And Prabhupada said Prabhupada said Lord Vishnu has four things in his hands: lotus, disc, club, and conch. Prabhupada said for the devotees, nice thing, conch and lotus. And I was sitting right there, and Prabhupada said for the demons, clubbing and cutting. So here you've got giving blessings, the chakra and the conch. Shank. This is the samadhi in that complex when you get to the inner sanctum. This is the samadhi of Mandir, of Ramanujacharya. This is the Ramanujacharya Murti. Whoop, sorry about that. This is the cart festival. See that beautiful cart they have? You can see, now you can get an idea of how high that Rangam, I wanted it for perspective, how high that Gopuram is. But they have so many festivals. They have practically a festival every day, like Tirupati. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu visited, we just heard, he stayed for 4 months in Sri Rangam, and this plaque and these lotus feet, they were installed by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur when he was traveling in South India. Different places of Mahaprabhu's Leela in South India, he established these. This is the house of Venkatabhatta, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed for 4 months in Sri Rangam. And this is Gopal Bhatta Acharya. He's there with his Sheela that later on turned into the, Radha Raman turned into Radha Raman. That's a whole story. We'll tell some other time. We're almost done here. So this is a nice story. Ramanujacharya. There were some criticizing the one of the brahmacharis was these attached householders, or there was some sannyasi going off on the householders, just like Panchadravida, and who had a very sweet relationship with Prabhupada, so it's okay that I mention his name. But he was on a walk, and you can hear the tape. It's in L.A., and he says to Prabhupada, these attached householders, they don't come to Mangalarti all the time, or the ladies, they're just taking care of their babies, they don't come to Mangalarti, or these houses, he's going off on the householders. And Prabhupada stops and says, you're just envious. Which was a shock, Prabhupada says, actually, you're so unattractive that no one will marry you, and you're just envious. sour grapes. That's pretty heavy, right? So, and another time Prabhupada loved, he loved his sannyasis. There's no question on taking risk. We're not minimizing the sannyas order, don't get me wrong. But Prabhupada was, an equal opportunity shelter. So he also loved his householders. There was, I don't know, those two sannyasis there's Prabhupada's in Caracas in Venezuela. Veer Bhagwat told me. And they're on Prabhupada came back from his, I don't know, Prabhupada had gone to some program and come back. It was mango season. So the devotees, they'd offered a bunch of mangoes to the deities, and there were some householders, and they were all sitting around laughing, joking, sharing Krishna Katha, and having some mangoes. And one of the sannyasis said, "Oh, just see those lusty householders eating all those mangoes." Prabhupada said, "It's just fruit." Prabhupada said, "It's 90% water." What is your issue? It's mango season. They're having some nice mangoes and talking about Krishna. Lighten up, So in that mood of harsh renunciation. Renunciation is essential. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, you don't never give up tapasya, don't give up renunciation. But if it makes the heart hard and you become arrogant, like Devarsa Muni, that's when it's a problem. So this sannyasi went off on the householders. So Ramanujacharya said, you go next morning where in secret, you're in hiding. And we have so many sannyasis and, brahmacharis are bathing in the river, and you switch all their clothes around. When they're in the river, you switch all their clothes. So he went there and switched all their clothes. And they came back and, you've got my kurta and you've got my lota, and they were all arguing, and they were all bent out of shape. Somebody moved their cheese. They got all ticked off, right? Okay. So then he said, now you go to this householder, and you go there at night, and you steal the wife's jewelry. The husband will be away. You sneak in and steal her jewelry. So, on the order of his guru, he went. And as he was taking the nighttime, the lady's sleeping, you can see big, beautiful, solid gold earring. So he slipped off the one earring, but she rolled over. And he thought, she's going to wake up and catch. So she fled. And he reported back to Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya said, go back right now, and listen outside the window what they're saying. And the husband had come back he was doing his puja at the temple. The husband came back, and the wife said, the brahmacharis at the temple, they must be so desperate. They must need money. Because they came and they stole my earring. And the husband said, I see that you've got your other earring. Why didn't you give him the other? She said, no. I was sleeping, and so I rolled over so he could take the other earring. That's why she rolled over, so that, because, your head's on the pillow, so you have to roll over. So this was the mood of the householders, that let them, and a wife, that's their security. Frankly, if the husband dies or the husband, something happens, the gold that's given to the wife at her wedding, all the nice gold, that's the security for the family. That's their investment fund, But they're just giving it all. You just take it, So that's a nice teaching of Ramanujacharya. And it's in our mood. Prabhupada's mood. So I already told the story. This is Jagannath Puri, and this is where Ramanujacharya was 24 miles away. Because Lord Jagannath said, no, I like this mood. So just for fun, these are the deities getting ready to go out on the festival, and you can see all the Brahmins. They've all got a service. So there it is. That's a little remembrance of Ramanujacharya. All glories to Sri Ramanujacharya. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. But remember, this is the noble line we come in. It works both ways. We have to live up to the mark. We're not just fooling around here. We're not just kids goofing around. But we represent Ramanujacharya. And this is the line that we come in. Also, we should remember that their mercy, their help, their support is flowing. So we have that shelter, and we have to live up to it. Hare Krishna. Somebody can get the lights. Thank you, Mukunda, for your help.